Thrilled to welcome Symphony 3 to the Local Government News Roundup family. If you're a local council, you know how challenging it can be to manage data across all your different systems. That's where Symphony 3 comes in. They've developed Smart Glue, a platform that integrates over 55 council systems, automating data flow without the need for manual work. It turns confusion into simplicity. With Smart Glue, councils save time, reduce errors and empower staff to focus on what really matters. Their clients see a real difference, up to 20% boost in productivity, with savings of over $30,000 per integration every year. Symphony 3 helps councils work smarter, faster and more efficiently, all while better supporting the communities they serve. Whittlesea's embattled mayor digs in and hits back. A call for an investigation into a ratepayer group. A controversial theatre plan dropped. Tough new action on abandoned trolleys. A motion of no confidence blocked. A city seeks a $2 billion lifeline. Conduct concerns at a South Australian council. Exceptional financial support for UK councils. Plus a conversation about the mental well-being of councillors and how it's impacting communities and democracies. Hello, I'm Chris Eddy. This is the Local Government News Roundup, your wrap-up of stories making news in the local government world across Australia and beyond. Brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. Whittlesea Mayor Aidan McClendon is pushing back against calls for his resignation and a no-confidence motion passed unanimously by the remaining 10 councillors last week. In a long personal statement published to social media on the weekend, Councillor McClendon says he and his family have faced escalating safety concerns and threats for months due to policy positions on various matters. He said incidents have included death threats, a car break-in, surveillance and public vilification campaigns, and security measures, including private security and increased police presence at council meetings, have been implemented. Councillor McClendon said he's met with the police and lodged a formal complaint with IBAC. He describes the complaint as wide-ranging, but provides no further detail on the substance of the complaint. Councillor McClendon also said the presence of former Whittlesea CEO Simon Overland at last week's council meeting as confronting, unsettling and strange. A Moonee Valley councillor is calling for an investigation into ratepayer group Council Watch. A notice of motion from Councillor Rose Isa is listed on the council's agenda for Tuesday and seeks support from the MAV in condemning the personal abuse and misinformation conveyed by the group regularly online. The motion also calls on the VEC and government ministers, including the Minister for Local Government, to conduct an investigation into the status of the group and whether it's required to comply with various disclosure, financial and other laws. Hobsons Bay City Council is seeking MAV support to advocate for a range of air quality measures in Melbourne's west, including monitoring stations on the Westgate Tunnel. The council wants the temporary monitoring to be made permanent and for filtration to be installed on the tunnel exhaust stacks. It's also adding its voice to a growing chorus of concerns about changes to the fire services levy, which it says will place an unfair burden on local governments. The agenda for this week's council meeting at Wyndham includes a petition to make the city an apartheid-free zone. It calls on the council to scrutinise and detach from companies that facilitate apartheid and genocide in Palestine. The council is also being asked to consider changing the name of one of its wards. Councillor Larry Zhao has proposed that Williams Landing Ward be renamed to be more representative of all residents in the ward. That includes Point Cook, Truganina and Hoppers Crossing. Melbourne Lord Mayor Nicholas Rees has abandoned controversial plans to sell the council's majority stake in the historic Regent Theatre, according to a report from ABC News. The proposal, which would have seen the City of Melbourne offload its 51% share, valued at around $40 million, faced significant public backlash. Lord Mayor Rees admitted that he'd underestimated the community's attachment to the Collins Street landmark, which originally opened in 1929. It will remain under joint ownership between the council and the Victorian government. And City of Greater Bendigo council workers have accepted a new enterprise agreement that includes significant wage increases of 4% in the first year and 3% or $50 per week in subsequent years. The Bendigo Advertiser reported that the new agreement also includes improved conditions for parents and various allowances. The agreement still requires Fair Work Commission approval and comes after workers initially rejected an offer in December and follows the resolution of industrial action by maternal and child health nurses. More council news briefs. The Ballarat Aquatic and Lifestyle Centre will receive a major $7.7 million sustainability upgrade, funded by a $2.5 million Australian government grant and $5.2 million from the city. It's to install an eco-friendly heat pump system, which will reduce gas consumption by 96%. Bass Coast and Moorabool Shire councils are among 19 recipients to share $21 million in active transport fund grants from the federal government. Bass Coast will receive $1 million for the Ventnor Road shared path, while Moorabool gets $1.8 million for Griffith Street works. East Gippsland Shire has awarded a design contract for a new multi-purpose indoor sporting stadium in Lakes Entrance, which will be primarily funded by an $800,000 commitment from the Victorian government. And the Mayor and CEO of Frankston City Council have hosted a visit from the Governor of Victoria, Margaret Gardner AC. During the visit, the Governor showed strong interest in supporting local prosperity and participated in a visit to some local businesses. This is the Local Government News Roundup for Monday the 24th of February. Coming up on Tuesday the 4th of March, the VLGA launches the results of its Victorian Councillor Census. It's all about what the 2020 to 2024 council term taught us about the councillor journey, the lessons learned, and what needs to change to set councillors up for success. Secure your place at this special event at the Lyceum Club in Melbourne, Tuesday the 4th of March from 11am to 2pm. You can find out more and register online at vlga.org.au/events. Liverpool City Council is taking drastic action against the growing menace of abandoned shopping trolleys in Sydney's southwest. 9 News reported that the council has unleashed a machine nicknamed the Croc, previously used to destroy old mattresses. It'll now be used to shred thousands of abandoned trolleys. The council says the initiative will not only clean up the streets, but also provide environmental benefits, with the metal being recycled rather than sent to landfill. The move comes as New South Wales grapples with over 8,000 reports of abandoned trolleys in just the first 6 weeks of this year. At Upper Hunter Shire Council, a controversial no-confidence motion against Mayor Maurice Cottison has been blocked from debate, according to the Newcastle Herald. Councillor Troy Stoltz's attempt to challenge the Mayor's leadership was deemed unlawful by the council's general manager. The motion called for a secret ballot to elect a new mayor, citing concerns over Mayor Cottison's handling of a notorious Road to Nowhere project and a disputed asbestos dumping case. Mayor Cottison has strongly rejected the claims and says he maintains majority support amongst councillors. Councillor Stoltz is believed to be seeking independent advice on his next moves. Federation Council is holding pop-up information sessions in March to engage with residents about their special rate variation application, which proposes significant rate increases of 69.94% cumulatively over 4 years. IPART is expected to make a decision in May following public exhibition and submissions in March and April. To Queensland, and In Daily reports that the outback mining city of Mount Isa is seeking a $2 billion lifeline as it faces major economic challenges. Local officials are preparing to lobby both state and federal governments for funding support, following news that Glencore will close its copper operations later this year. The closure is expected to result in around 600 job losses, with the city's population potentially dropping by nearly half. Mount Isa Mayor Peter McRae says the council has identified 28 priority projects worth $2.7 billion. The funding bid follows similar government support packages recently provided to other industrial centres, including Gladstone's aluminium sector and the Whyalla Steelworks in South Australia. Sunshine Coast Mayor Rosanna Natoli has joined a statewide push for increased federal funding to local councils. The Mayor says councils are being handed more responsibilities without adequate financial support, with local governments now managing over 3/4 of our roads. The Local Government Association of Queensland is calling for financial assistance grants to be restored to 1% of total Australian tax revenue, which would deliver an additional $12 million to the Sunshine Coast region. Currently, for every $100 in tax paid by local residents, only 50 cents is returned to council for essential community services. In the north of the state, Cloncurry Shire Council is awaiting crucial federal funding for its airport upgrade project. The Northwest Weekly reported that a $20 million airport upgrade hangs in the balance, with only half the required funding secured. Mayor Greg Campbell welcomed last week's $4.5 million federal grant, but says the council needs an additional $10 million to complete essential safety upgrades and expansion works. And LGAQ has welcomed opposition leader Peter Dutton's commitment to make insurance more affordable. CEO Alison Smith says insurance affordability is a critical cost of living issue, particularly in Australia's most disaster-prone state. The association is now calling on the federal government to match the pledge as part of broader measures seeking over $73 billion in economic benefits for Queensland communities. More news in brief. Submissions for the proposed amendments to the New South Wales Model Code of Meeting Practice will close on Friday. The new Model Meeting Code aims to strengthen local decision-making and councillor governance and is expected to be prescribed early this year following consideration of public feedback. Circular Head Council in Tasmania has appointed Andrew Wardlaw as Acting General Manager, effective from the 18th of March and until a permanent appointment is made. Mr Wardlaw brings over 3 decades of local government experience, including roles at Burnie City Council as GM and a recently concluded stint as Commissioner for Dorset Council. And the Queensland Government has approved $12.5 million in funding for 9 of the state's councils to accelerate housing development approvals and reduce bureaucratic obstacles, with each council receiving $100,000 to improve their planning schemes. It's part of a broader strategy to address the state's housing crisis and achieve the government's target of building 1 million homes in the next 20 years. Coming up shortly, that conversation about the importance of the mental well-being of our local representatives. But first, more news from around the states. In Tasmania, Pulse Tasmania is reporting that Hobart's e-scooter trial could become a permanent fixture, with the City Council set to vote today on extending the program. Despite concerns in other cities like Melbourne, a recent survey shows majority support among Hobart residents for the transport option. Council documents reveal plans to not only continue the e-scooter scheme, but also explore introducing hire and ride e-bikes. The council is looking to address parking issues with additional zones and stricter controls. Firefighters are expressing frustration over a Hobart City Council decision to remove the city's aquatic centre from a key fitness program, as reported by Pulse Tasmania. They say they've been blindsided by the decision to withdraw the Doone Kennedy Aquatic Centre from the Fitness Passport program, which currently allows emergency service workers to access multiple fitness facilities for a single fee. The United Firefighters Union warns the move will impact their members' rehabilitation and fitness routines, while Council CEO Michael Stretton says the decision aims to ensure fairer pricing across the board. And to Devonport, where a major development project is set to transform the city centre, the local council has approved the sale of the Edward Street car park for a new mixed-use development that will bring both commercial spaces and residential apartments to the CBD. The $825,000 project, led by developer Small is the New Big, will see a 4-storey building constructed featuring 7 ground-floor commercial spaces and 35 residential apartments. Mayor Alison Jarman says the development is another step forward in Devonport's Living City initiative, driving growth and progress in the city. A final report from an investigation at Burnside Council in South Australia has substantiated allegations of inappropriate councillor conduct. The report found allegations of multiple breaches of behavioural standards by Councillor Jane Davey and evidence of a culture that victimises persons who speak up about inappropriate behaviour. It said broader cultural issues should be addressed before any individual council member is referred to a behavioural standards panel. New CEO Julia Grant confirmed that behavioural standards training is part of mandatory training that all council members are obliged to complete. In Western Australia, the Shire of Derby West Kimberley has appointed Tamara Clarkson as its new Chief Executive Officer. Ms Clarkson brings 18 years of local government experience to the role. She's been serving as acting CEO and will now take on the position permanently following council endorsement on Thursday. And Town of Bassendean Mayor Catherine Hamilton has firmly rejected suggestions of council amalgamation with neighbouring municipalities, according to a report from Perth Now. The proposal surfaced at a recent annual general meeting when a resident questioned whether merging with the larger city of Bayswater could improve services and reduce rates. Mayor Hamilton defended the town's independence, citing lower waste charges compared to larger neighbouring councils. She noted Bassendean residents pay $60 less annually while receiving double the services. This isn't the first time amalgamation has been discussed. Previous attempts in 2014 and 2020 were unsuccessful, with the Mayor noting that the community has historically opposed such moves. The Global Roundup is still to come, but right now I want to bring in a special guest. A recent global study has revealed that elected members rate their mental well-being lower than emergency workers. It's been described as a wake-up call that the people we elect to lead us are struggling. Thought leaders and elected reps are coming together for a unique event later this week for a deep conversation on the impact of this issue and how to address it. To find out more, I spoke with organiser Emma Broomfield.
Hi, Chris. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you here. Tell me about Local Learning, firstly.
Local Learning provides professional development and leadership support for local councillors in New South Wales in particular, but also across Australia as well.
Yes, and you've got a bit of a background, a legal background, working in and around councils for some time, I understand.
Yes, I have. I've been working in the local government sector for most of my career now and started off in the early days as a lawyer in the planning and development world and local government, but since then have diversified into mediation, conflict resolution, community engagement and anything to do with local government pretty much, and have become particularly passionate about supporting people who take the brave step to become a counsellor and to supporting them to be really effective in their role and to lead ethically and mindfully and ultimately to create outcomes that they want for their community.
Pretty broad remit you've outlined there, and I'm guessing that keeps you busy. Why at this particular point in time do you see the need for this event that's focusing on mental well-being in particular?
Well, we started working in this space a few years ago, and not surprisingly, that was around COVID, and that wouldn't be a surprise to people listening. And we could see that councillors in particular were really under a lot of pressure. And in New South Wales in particular, we had the delay in the elections by 1 year, so people who were not expecting to continue their term basically forced to continue for another year, and then it was delayed for another 3 months as well. And so there was a lot of pressure at that point, which was also compounded by natural disasters. We had the bushfires, which everyone remembers around that time as well. So we could really see our councillors needing support. And so we really just stepped in and started providing practical support for leaders at that time. And since then, over the last few years, that's really grown in terms of our focus, and we have a very strong philosophy about recognising the human side of leading and governing and recognising the human experience that people have. And we've connected with other organisations across the world who are doing similar work. And what we've discovered is actually this is not just happening in Australia, it's an issue that's actually happening across a lot of countries, and we connected with the work of the Apolitical Foundation, who released a report in 2023 called the Mere Mortals Report, which looked into this topic in depth and found that the politicians surveyed actually had lower mental well-being than our frontline emergency service workers, lower than ambulance workers, lower than paramedics, which is pretty shocking. And so we can see similar things happening here in Australia. I have lots of conversations behind closed doors, one-to-one with councillors and other leaders in the space who are very open about the struggles that they have with me, at least directly. And I can just see the pattern. Yeah, and there's a lot of people who I think are looking for support, perhaps don't know where to go, and there's a real appetite to start talking about this more openly and to provide support mechanisms for counsellors in particular to get the help they need, but importantly, to lead from a place which is purposeful and impactful as well.
I think this is great because it's putting some real ways you can deal with the impact of this rise of incivility. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast. You might be aware I participated with Diane Kalan-Sucre in Canada last year on a global summit on this issue. And it's time to really look at, well, what can people do actually in a concrete way to respond to this? I just want to read a quote from your page, which really resonated with me. Political well-being is not about mindfulness, green smoothies and day spas. It's about our elected leaders having the mental fitness to make the decisions that matter for their communities. I think that really sums it up. And this is what you're trying to do with this summit this week?
Correct. That's exactly right. And I think sometimes the term well-being can get conflated with wellness. We're not talking about wellness. So of course, that's important to people. And the focus of the summit is twofold. One, we're really excited. We have an international panel event kicking the summit off with other leaders across the world who are working in this space. And then the rest of the summit will be diving into our framework, which we've developed, which includes 8 different elements of political wellbeing for councillors. And so it is very practical and hands-on in that people who come will leave with a toolkit of things that they can do in each of those elements to bolster their wellbeing and to protect themselves from some of the harmful impacts that we know can happen in that role.
It's a big commitment. You've got 3 days of live sessions coming up. Is it something people can dip in and out of during and even after the event if they're registered?
Definitely. So it's over 3 days. They're short sessions. So people are very welcome to come to one or all of the sessions. They can even dip into the 45-minute session with one speaker if a particular topic's of interest to them. And all of the materials will be available post the summit via recording, so that can be accessed for up to 12 months.
Terrific. All right. What's the interest been like so far?
Well, that's a great question because what we've discovered in raising the flag about this issue is that there is still stigma out there about people speaking up, and there can be a real perception that saying that this role is a challenge is seen as a weakness, or it being used for political ammunition by others. And so this is something that's interesting for us because we know lots of people care about it, but we also know that there's some challenges and barriers perhaps for people saying, actually, I should come along. So what I would say to anyone in that situation is lean into that. The summit's going to be a really supportive, inclusive space where you'll connect with lots of other like-minded individuals who care deeply about your success if you are a councillor or if you're working in government, local government, who care about making a difference as well.
Well, I'm happy to give it a plug here to our audience. I think it's a really important piece of work you're doing. There is a cost attached, but the details, where can people find out more about being part of it?
Yes, so they can jump online at our website, which is www.locallearning.com.au. And just to spell that out, because it's a bit of a funny name, LOCALE, locallearning.com.au. And if you just navigate down the page, you'll see the summit details there.
Emma, thank you for making us aware of this. And if there's anything to come from it that you think is worthy of sharing with our audience, open invitation to come back on and give us a bit of a debrief.
I would absolutely love to do that. And I'd love to be able to share more about our framework and how councillors can use that to support themselves to make the impact they want for their communities.
Fabulous. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Now for our global roundup, and from the UK, BBC News has reported that 6 London councils are among those to receive exceptional financial support from the government for the upcoming financial year. The funding package aimed at struggling local authorities ranges from £136 million for Croydon to £10 million for Enfield. Lambeth Council will receive a separate £40 million allocation specifically for housing stock management. The London funding is part of a broader national support package, with 30 councils across England receiving assistance. Birmingham tops the list with a £180 million allocation. That council's troubled IT system could cost taxpayers a staggering £90 million to fix, according to a new audit report. The Oracle program, implemented in April 2022 to streamline payment and HR processes, has been plagued with issues and is not expected to be fully operational until at least 2026. BBC News reported the costs have nearly doubled since June last year, adding further strain to the council's finances after it effectively declared bankruptcy in September. Local residents are already facing a 7.49% council tax increase from April. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has pledged to tackle air pollution caused by barges and narrowboats along the city's waterways. According to airqualitynews.com, he's responded to concerns about diesel emissions and solid fuel burning affecting residents' health during an LBC radio Q&A session. Mayor Khan promised to make the same progress in cleaning up London's rivers as has been achieved with road pollution, despite having limited direct powers over the waterways. In Lancashire, a local councillor has resigned amid controversy over unpaid council tax and poor attendance at meetings. BBC News reported that Conservative councillor Tom Ormerod has stepped down from his position on Pendle Borough Council after revelations that he owed nearly £4,000 in unpaid council tax spread across 3 years. And council records show he attended just 3 meetings since taking office in May last year, missing 27 others. The ward is now facing its second by-election following an earlier resignation in December. To the US, in West Boylston, Massachusetts, a dispute over a Trump flag has led to an unusual standoff between the town's police chief and its newly appointed administrator. PoliceOne.com reported that Police Chief Dennis Minich Sr. has placed himself on leave, refusing to return to work until Town Administrator James Ryan is removed from his position. The controversy began when Ryan, just days into the job, ordered the removal of a Trump flag from the police station's gym. The situation escalated after additional flags were discovered, leading to accusations of dishonesty and unauthorised photography within restricted areas of the police station. The local police union has issued a vote of no confidence in the town administrator, and the chief, a 32-year veteran of the force, maintains the flag display is protected under First Amendment rights. Vacation rental giant Airbnb has filed a federal lawsuit against the city of New Orleans over new regulations requiring short-term rental platforms to verify property permits. The Associated Press reports that the lawsuit comes as New Orleans grapples with a housing crisis, with officials reporting over 7,000 active Airbnb listings, but only 1,350 legally licensed properties. The City Council President has taken a strong stance, suggesting that if regulation isn't possible, a complete ban on short-term rentals could be considered. In Canada, plans for a new apartment development in Regina's Albert Park have been grounded following opposition from the city's airport authority, according to a report from the Leader Post. The Regina City Council has rejected a proposal for 3-storey apartment buildings after the airport's CEO expressed serious concerns about noise impacts. The development, which would have added 18 units to the city's tight rental market, fell within the airport's noise exposure forecast zone. And in New Zealand, Environment Southland has lost a significant court battle over wetland protection. One News reported that the High Court has found the Regional Council failed to meet its statutory obligations to monitor and protect wetland areas. The Environmental Law Initiative, which brought the case against the council, revealed that Southland has lost over 2,700 hectares of wetlands in just over 2 decades, accounting for nearly half of New Zealand's total wetland loss during that period. Environment Southland has acknowledged the court's decision and says it's developing new monitoring programs and updating its water plan. You've been listening to the Local Government News Roundup, edition number 431, recorded on the 24th of February 2025. Comments, feedback, story ideas, you can send an email to lgweeklynews@gmail.com. For more information about this episode, including the story links, you can head to lgnewsroundup.com. The Local Government News Roundup is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, your councillor support network, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. And thanks to the many of you who make the podcast possible by supporting us through a monthly subscription. Support starts at $3 per month, less than $5 Australian, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. You'll find the details on the website or in your podcast player. The Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Until next time, thanks for listening, and bye for now. A councillor's commitment to community doesn't stop when their time as an elected representative ends. In recognition of this and to strengthen its ongoing support for former councillors, the VLGA has launched an alumni program open to anyone who has held an elected position in local government. By becoming a VLGA alumnus, former councillors will have access to VLGA programs and special alumni networking events, as well as the opportunity to participate in forums and share key learnings and insights to inform sector advocacy. You'll be kept up to date on local government news and be able to participate in VLGA events and professional development opportunities at a special VLGA alumni member rate. To find out more about this exciting opportunity, visit www.vlga.org.au.